right, the boys are back officially post draft, getting ready for the schedule to get released. Not a ton to talk about, but we're definitely going to find a couple of things to really get into because I know that Kalen got a quarterback, Josh reached for a running back, and the Steelers might have had one of the best drafts of all time, which we'll break down. And I'll have you guys kind of feed me your lines because I got mine. But before we do, it is very important for us to always make sure that we're taking care of our sponsors. So today's podcast is brought to you by the Betstamp app. The Betstamp app is absolutely free. It is where you're going to go find the best value for everything sports betting. So go ahead and hit that and DM us if you need a referral code for that. Um, but let's jump right in, guys. Big weekend. We had a whole bunch of
Big
fun.
couple of weeks, really, right?
Yeah, we had a whole bunch of fun down at the Kellogg's Market, helping out our boy Jesse at the Hot Sauce Co. Um, Devils finally got themselves on the board. Leafs are on the ropes. But let's start off with the bread and butter because we need to know how we felt on draft day. Balin was here. We watched Will Levis fall all the way to the second round, but I think Will Levis is kind of where we start here, right? So where where do you stand on the Will Levis thing? I'm gonna crack my beer too.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got to take a quarterback. Like,
Agreed.
yeah, I mean, like it has to happen. This is Tannehill's last year. We didn't see a lot of good stuff out of Malik Willis last year. Are we going to try and play the gamble of going after Caleb Williams next year? I just don't think that's not the take that any team wants to do. There's only really two talents next year that I think
Yeah.
anybody's worth jumping up for. Why do you want to risk even trying to be in the top two there? So I think it's the right choice. If you look back, there's a lot I didn't know about this kid. Like I really didn't know. I don't watch Kentucky. I watched some highlights and then I dug a little bit deeper into the
Yeah.
guy. This guy was, he fast tracked his college career at Penn State to graduate early so that he could dive completely into Kentucky and get into their playbook. If he was going into the draft 2 years ago, not this year, but a year ago, sorry, he
Yep.
would have been a top pick. He would have been maybe the number one quarterback potentially taken, right?
Yep.
So it was injuries that did him in. It was a horrible offensive line that Kentucky had,
Yep.
almost historically bad down there in Kentucky, and he played through injury. And can you name a receiver out of Kentucky? Can anybody? Right? Like, it,
No, and I agree. I mean, and he played against premium competition, right? Like
yep.
they weren't the best team. Last year's team was definitely a better team. This year he played through a lot of injuries. The automatic comparison for him was Josh Allen. It's because they're both large and white. I don't really understand the comparison because
Both got a rock and arm.
yeah,
That is one thing that is there.
but I'm gonna say that like if Josh Allen runs you over, like you're gonna feel it the next day. Will Levis is gonna outrun you,
Yeah.
and that's where things are gonna get a little bit different. I agree with the pick. I think that it was the absolute right pick. It's a loser mentality waiting for Caleb Williams next year, waiting for Drake Mayo next year, whoever the quarterback that's going to come out of the woodwork that no one's heard of.
Mhm.
This guy absolutely would have been one of the top picks last year. And I don't believe that I think this quarterback class was very overreached for, I think. I mean,
Well,
I like Bryce Young
yeah.
Yeah,
and I like CJ Stroud and Anthony Richards. I mean, he's either going to be amazing
he's gonna be.
or he's going to be a complete bust. And I'm not sure that the way that he plays, he can be mediocre. But I guess the question from that would be, do you think that who wins the Super Bowl the previous year dictates how the draft can go? And I'll give you just the last 2 years as the example. And maybe if you go back to the other one for Patrick Mahomes, if you look at Tom Brady and if you look at Matt Stafford, both of these teams drafted, traded away their picks, they brought in a veteran. You know, now Mahomes shows that homegrown talent is probably the best way to go, and you just pay the guys around him. If you find a good guy, then that's your guy. So if you look at last year's draft class, there's really no reason that Kenny Pickett slid to 21 or 20 or what wherever he was. Maybe the other guys, the way that they've played, has shown why. Malik Willis is maybe a third round pick, but I think Sam Howell probably should have went a little bit higher. Desmond Ritter probably should have went a little bit higher. Um, Overall, I'm curious what you guys think of that, but overall, like that's the view that I had when I was actually watching the draft.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in my opinion, I just think it depends on your team you're trying to build. Like when you look at teams like Tampa when they brought in Brady, or just like when the Rams brought in Stafford, they already had vets around that they actually had drafted, like Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald. Like they had those guys. They were
Right.
just missing that one thing that they kind of needed. Whereas with KC, they have that one guy they need, and that's Mahomes, and they're just going to try and build around him the best they possibly can with their cap and all those sorts of things. So it's just, I find you got to meet in the middle. I don't know if that's going to win you games, but you almost want to have that issue whether you need someone or you want to bring in draft capital. It's like what the Lions did. We brought in draft capital, and that's the way we're going about it because we can't realistically. You're probably never going to get a guy to come in like a Tom Brady to the Lions or whatever, right? So
No, it's fair. And I mean, Goff is like a poor man's version of both of them, I guess. But
yeah,
Um, I partially see what you're saying there, but I also talk about. I was want. He said draft capital. I want to come back to because you
yeah,
mentioned C.J. Stroud. I'm going to be very honest. That's an overreach. Like
yeah.
what they paid to get him, and I really did want C.J. Stroud, and I know the Titans certainly did from all the reports that were coming out. But if that trade had gone down and it was the Titans draft picks, I don't think I'd be sitting here saying I'm happy with it this week, guys. So I
right.
don't know how the Texans are outside of the fact they had a few extra bangers in their pocket at draft picks, right? But I do see what you're saying. I do think Will Levis should have gone higher than this year. There's some other quarterbacks that I think probably still should have gone higher this year.
Right.
It's just, but there's also the chance Kenny Pickett. He's probably the only quarterback we've seen anything good of. Other than Desmond Ritter, I still haven't bought into that guy yet.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah. So
And and we'll get into the rumor mill a little later on, but if you believe the rumor mill, Atlanta might not have either, because there was discussions at the draft that Kyler Murray would get traded to Atlanta.
and who was the other option at quarterback to get traded? Ryan Tannehill.
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was two rumors.
There are actually rumors going around. I didn't see that one.
Yeah, so the Kyler Murray one, they couldn't come to, from what I understood from the report, was that they couldn't come to draft compensation. They couldn't meet eye to eye there. With the Tannehill one, it was strictly salary. They couldn't come. They had a deal in place. They just couldn't match the salary they wanted to take off the books and stuff. So, I mean, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I got in arguments on the Titans Reddit page about how I think it's stupid to think about Tannehill getting cut this year. I thought we were going to ride the wave of the one last year. It's looking more and more likely it's a June 1st cut, guys. Like, this is what it's going to be. I know it sounds silly because
Yeah.
you got 3 more weeks of this guy. Why not just cut him right now? But if you've already openly, everybody has reported that you tried to trade this guy now, and it's the last year. Can you get a fifth round for him?
Well,
That's it.
And overall, like a fifth round to pay, you're still paying a huge chunk of his salary. So cutting after June 1st, I don't know what the savings is, but
17.
yeah, so it's usually pretty high.
Yeah.
So that's logical, and let Levis and Malik Willis go in there and compete. And if for some reason Malik Willis beats him out, great, because that means you probably have a trade piece to like move around. And if he doesn't, then
You find out what you
no
have.
shit, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I would expect if it's not week one, by week 2 or 3, like Levis is the starter, and I view him kind of like as an Andy Dalton coming into Cincinnati back in the day with AJ Green. You brought in your tackle who might just be an all-pro guard, which is fine.
I'm going to
And
kick back on that. I'm going to
and
kick back on that
that's
in a
fine.
minute. Yeah.
And you brought in your Andy Dalton style guy that's far more athletic, and you are gonna have some money to make some moves here because there's a lot of free agents that are kicking around out there. I don't know, Tennessee might be a team to watch out for. I mean,
In a couple of years. I mean, I'm coming back to Willis. The more that I looked at him, he would.
your division stinks though, so
Yeah.
they might be in play this year.
Yeah, they could.
The oldest QB in that division is Trevor Lawrence, and he's what?
Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
You guys keep firing away.
He's in his early 20s there. So it's not like you guys are far off. And what I was going to say about Tannehill is it's not that detrimental to have him in that room either way because he's a veteran. And we've seen with these young QBs now coming into the league that they thrive off having that veteran presence for at least a year.
Mhm.
When you throw a rookie in there, it's a little tough.
And if you think about all the offenses that are in the NFL, the Tennessee Titans, I know it's going to be a new one here with Tim Kelly, right? But it's a very sheltered offense for
Yep.
most quarterbacks. You guys have harped, and not just you, but Ricky and anybody else that's come at me, that Tannehill is a very basic quarterback and can succeed, but he's not going to bring people up around him. And the type of offense that he's in can certainly allow a player like Will Levis to do that, right?
Brett,
Now, I need to kick back a little bit here on the all-pro guard conversation, okay?
please.
I totally felt I felt the same way as you that this guy was going to be a guard. And then I looked into a left tackle that the Titans had for many, many years named Michael Bruce. Do you remember him at all?
Yep.
Yeah, all pro, all-star guy. He had arms an inch shorter than Skronsky. So I know this is the big thing. He's the 7th percentile as far as reach, and that's what his length is the big issue for him. Everything else about this guy is fantastic technique-wise. I still think that this guy, maybe a left tackle because we don't have. I know that Dillard was brought in. He can play left tackle. He can play guard too.
Mhm.
I think best position for him is to slide him into that guard spot and let Skronsky play on the outside. That being said, he's going to be going against Will Anderson in the division now that they also
Right.
traded up for, right?
And as much as Will Anderson, we believe is going to be like a defensive player of the year down the road, potential candidate, or an all pro guy, he might be a pro bowler. They paid an awful lot for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they got the
Mm-hmm.
two guys that they wanted. Cool. But it's hard to call it a reach because we don't really know how it's going to work out. But that one looks like a reach. And I know you're saying that the Stroud one was a reach. I think that they probably could have taken Anderson at 2 and let Stroud fall like to, I don't know, 6, 7. I mean,
Well, he was going to go with 3. The Titans are going to go to 3, right?
yeah. So that's where I think like you kind of have to make that pick, and then you really wanted Anderson, so you had to overpay for Anderson. So if CJ Stroud turns into be a Patrick Mahomes ish type player, then it doesn't. You could give your first round pick for the rest of your life, and at least you
Yeah.
don't have to play against them. But right now, I don't know.
Now, you mentioned about Will Anderson, where he's going to be down the road. We think he's going to be. I was just quickly thinking there, like in the top 10 or the top 15, where they have like those high end pass rushers that go in the last like 5 or 6 years. I can't think of many that have busted. Like we see busted wide receivers and busted quarterbacks and running backs in different spots, but it seems like when they have like the honed in top 3 pass rushers, those
Yep,
guys are going to just be pass rushers and they're going to succeed, right? It's when you get to the second round and the third round where you find these guys that may not be top tier that they got to coach them a little bit to
that's
get that
fair.
extra level out of them. But I am really worried about Anderson in that regard because there's haven't been a lot of misses pass rush wise, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's fair. And I think overall, because the translation can be so much easier. I mean, you're rushing the quarterback, so I mean, you really need to get there probably a split second sooner or something along those lines. So it's easier to translate. Just like there's not a whole lot of bust receivers. They're out there, ask Philly, but there's not a whole bunch of them.
Unless they come from Michigan State.
It's a
Well,
shot at
that was
like
one of the
Scott
biggest
Jackson.
busts of all time. But
Yeah.
in his defense, he shouldn't have been picked that high. That's just like for some reason the Lions just like get a hard on for something and they just grab it.
Is that what happened this year?
That's absolutely what happened.
Oh, I
They
mean,
100% thought that Robinson was going to be sitting there at 12, which is
yeah,
why they moved back.
yeah.
And then when he didn't, panicked and they took a second round pick with the 12th overall pick.
Yeah, so going off the Lions draft, I mean, we called it. DeAndre, I said on the show, you agreed with me. DeAndre Swift was getting traded.
Yeah.
We all kind of agreed with that. What we got for him, like we got what we thought we'd get for him. Not much, but
Yeah.
you're not paying him next year. The Lions aren't going to pay a running back because they're going to draft. I think they knew going in they were going to draft one, and like
Your bet's not looking so hot, is
I
it?
saw all these posts. The Lions were like, look at our backfield. We have Jameer Gibbs, DeAndre Swift, and David Montgomery. I'm like, you might as well not post that because DeAndre Swift's gone tomorrow. That's
Yeah.
not a thing. DeAndre
Yeah.
Swift is he knew and he's going to a good situation. He's going to somewhere that he does want to be there, and they might pay him. Who knows if he has a great season? But I wouldn't. I would say it was. I was shocked. Like I wasn't here. I honestly didn't see the pick until after, and I didn't see the 18th pick. I honestly had a feeling though at that 18, I knew we were going linebacker, and I thought it was going to be Jack Campbell just because they seemed
It
to.
was the namesake. That's
Yeah.
why he
Well,
took that. It's like he's a great linebacker, but it was a namesake.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like we desperately need a backer when you look at the roster. I know we could have went in the second round, but they were like, okay, we're gonna grab this guy because I think they were worried about Buffalo taking a backer where they were sitting just because they lost Edmonds and they lost a few other guys. So I'd seen Jack Campbell mock there a few times, and then at the 12, I mean, we got the 34, so we got the tight end that I like his film a lot. He might be he's similar to TJ Hawkinson. They came from the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
school, but they're basically the same exact player. And we traded TJ Hawkinson last year, so we're basically
To a division rival.
Yeah. That's
yeah,
Laporta, right?
yeah, Laporta. He went. We took him ahead of Mayer. I just think he fits more of what the Lions have done with their tight ends in the past, a more athletic type. And then, I mean, we can talk about the back now. I guess the back is I love his take. Like he's basically when you look at how DeAndre Swift played, catch the ball to the backfield, that really elusive guy. It's him, thicker. He has a little bit more meat on his body to run through guys and get in between the tackles.
Yeah.
I do think he's going to be a good guy for us, but you also paid David Montgomery, so now you have the 12th overall pick and David Montgomery. So Now you're saying, okay, we're going to run the ball. I'm guessing a lot to start the season, just because we're without Jameson Williams for 6 games.
Right.
So we'll see what happens there. And then the one pick that there's two more picks I guess we can talk about quickly. Ryan Branch was probably our best pick of the draft
By
for
far.
where we got him.
By far.
He's a Swiss Army knife base, so you can play him wherever, and he can kind of do a bunch of things. He's great with ball skills, and then he can hit wherever, right?
Honestly, like, and I'm not sure if Jack Campbell starts week one. I think that you got an undrafted free agent that might start week one in Brandon Joseph from Notre Dame.
What does he play again there?
He's
So
a safety.
safety?
So
Okay,
I
yeah.
Branch is going to be a nickel, and I think that Joseph, as an undrafted free agent, is going to start as a safety.
The only thing with him starting week one as a safety is Kirby Joseph. He had a great season last year, and then a lot of people forget we have Tracy Walker coming back from injury. So that's the guy who he would be competing with. And who's to say that he can't beat him? Who knows if Tracy Walker's ready week one to run around on his Achilles anyway? So he could be in there. But I really do love that pick, and especially with Gardner Johnson, Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley. That's a big upgrade in our DB room compared to last year. And then the last guy was Hendon Hooker. I want to get your guys' opinion on this. I was cool with it. Like realistically, I think the Lions are gonna. What it sounds like they're gonna extend Goff or pay Goff a little more money. We'll see if that actually happens because Hendon Hooker, from what I hear, could have been one of the top QBs in this class if it wasn't for that injury, like taken early
Yeah.
in the
And if he
first
was going to
round.
be 4 years younger.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and if he
yeah.
was younger too, right?
He's 38.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if
We can't. I get it. He's only 27.
Yeah, he's Brandon Whedon.
Yeah.
the good thing about it, I would say too, is Goff has he stayed healthy this year, but last year he was banged up, and then the year before that he injured his thumb. Like he's
Right.
been injury prone. So to have a guy at least behind him that maybe you can believe in and show trust in, and he doesn't even have to come in the first few weeks and be that guy. He's going to be able to learn, and he's injured, right? So it's the same kind of situation as we had with Jameson Williams last year. A rookie coming in injured. Now you get to sit behind, watch a little bit, and then step into a role. So
Well, Jameson Williams probably isn't going to be a threat. I think that the Lions went in with a game plan, and I think it was Mike Tyson that said everybody has a game plan until they get punched in the mouth. And then the Lions got punched in the mouth, and they just started panic picking. Because, I mean, Jameer Gibbs, look, if this guy starts rushing for 1,600 yards and gets 10 touchdowns and wins Rookie of the Year, no one's going to care you picked him at 12. That's not going to happen.
yeah.
And if Jack Campbell, I mean, the way that your defense, don't you guys only start two linebackers?
Uh, we
Unless
kind
you're
of play in a,
reshaping the
yeah, we
defense.
play.
I
It
mean,
depends what system like we play in. A lot of times we walk down a backer to play end. So like James
yeah,
Houston was that role last year, and then they kind of just went with Anzalone, Derek Barnes, and Rodriguez as like the guys that they would play. So now like Derek Barnes has been not very great from Vanderbilt, and he was a Matt Patricia pick. So now you look at a guy when they bring in Campbell. Campbell and Rodriguez are the future of that linebacking core, and then you have Anzalone, who's kind of that leader that they need to have in the room. When you
right,
watch
right,
a lot of the tape, he was the one making all the adjustments on that defense last year. That's why they brought him back to play because they need him to teach these guys how to call adjustments out for the defensive front. And then, like, they don't call for the corners or the twos, but for the defensive front, the linebacker has to be able to call and tell the D tackles and ends where to move. So we need a guy that's at least smart, and apparently Campbell is, so hopefully he'll fit us.
I'm not willing to call it all gloom and doom. I know you want to gang up on them, and I think you can make fun of their draft because they made some silly decisions. But I think when all is said and done now with the players that they traded and they got in the draft now, I'm not. I think the Lions' offense is going to be fun to watch. Again, they still have a great offensive line. I think they can plug and play a running back
yeah,
in there. They can air the ball out. Listen, they made Jared Goff kind of look like Jared Goff a few years ago. So if they can do that with Jared Goff, I have no problem with them taking a player like Hendon Hooker and seeing what they can do with him next year or the following year. This is a guy who aired it out at Tennessee and had the highest completion percentages in the.
sure, yeah, I got no problem with that either.
Yeah, I don't. I make fun of his age and everything, but I think that he's in another position offensively where everything is going to click for him at the right times. It's just your defense. Like I know that on paper things look great. You got some cool names there, but I think that's going to get their asses kicked this year.
I think when it comes down to it, like you think first round value, and when you talk about value, the same way that you would go online if you were traveling to go on Expedia or Google Flights is the same way that I recommend you use Betstamp. Because Betstamp is the number one app, and it's totally free to go out there and shop your lines. and find out the absolute best value. It doesn't make sense to have your money in one book. Have your money in five books. Get your best value. Make your pick. Josh, what was our pick tonight?
I was saying Lakers money line. I think it was 130 at Caesars, and then I also like the over in the Knicks and Heat game tonight. It was 206, and I think that was Betano. So I think those are two bets to look at, and then maybe even Vegas on the money line if you're feeling a little like risky for another Canadian team to lose tonight in the NHL
I
playoffs.
mean, have a look at Drysdale to score. But yeah, make sure when you download that app, you use that referral code of GF2, and that GF2 app links you with us, and we can watch your bets, and we can help you out. And if you're watching the show anyway, you might as well roll with us. But yeah, as we were talking first round, Hayden Hooker, whatever, all that stuff makes
He
sense.
sees him 5 times. He still calls him Hayden.
What,
And
Hayden.
then
whatever. I mean, eventually, once he's at his 40th birthday party, we'll get there. Um, Maybe we'll go into a little bit of AFC and then we'll bounce around a little bit because look, I think that this was Omar Khan's first draft, brand new GM in Pittsburgh, first one in over 21 years, and it's not because we fire GMs, it's because they get their job and they retire. So Kevin Colbert, see you later. His last pick was Kenny Pickett. Thank you very much. Um, Omar Khan knew that the Jets were going to want to take that tackle at 15. The draft board kind of fell to them. They ended up giving a fourth round pick. They got a left tackle that they desperately needed. We do not generally draft offensive linemen in the first round, especially not that high. So I was fairly excited about that one. Having Joey Porter Jr. fall to the first round
yeah.
is first round talent that with untapped potential. I mean, we're basing that on mock drafts, right? Like we're not scouts. We watch football. He's long, he's fast, and he's a legacy pick. So it made a ton of sense. They shored up the defensive line with a guy from Wisconsin that most people probably wouldn't know, but his name's Benton. Um, they came back and got that big tight end from Georgia, Darnell Washington,
I
and
wanted him.
and
I did.
and look, I mean, at that point, you're looking at three potential first round picks because a lot of mocks and a lot of rankings had Darnell Washington going in the back end of the first round. You pick him up late in the third round. You end up trading back to that spot to regroup the pick that you got from the Jets or you gave up to the Jets to get your left tackle, and then use that fourth round pick get another linebacker out of Wisconsin, Higby, whose brother is also on the Steelers because the Steelers love having family members on there. This guy had 12 and a half sacks in the Big Ten last year. So there was so much value, seventh round picks, that one of them apparently was mocked as a second round pick. I don't know a ton about him. He went to Purdue. He's a huge dude. But I think that Tomlin and Khan crushed the draft. And the fact that their overall undrafted free agent list was fairly short means they don't need people to compete for spots. They know that they got a team in place for Kenny Pickett here.
I really like that. Like, I really like the Steelers draft. I was saying if the Lions like didn't take a tight end at 34 when they were there, either Laporta, Mayer, I would say even I would have took Darnell Washington over that Musgrove guy that went, to be completely honest. But
It was
getting
a
him
medical
late,
thing, right?
yeah, getting him, yeah, it's his knee, right?
Apparently,
Yeah. But it's apparently not like a big injury. It's just something that you got to watch. I mean, he's a big guy. Like, it's
he's
not true.
basically a sixth offensive lineman, right? Like, and then
Yeah.
Najee Harris is going to be so pumped up to have this guy out there blocking for him.
He's the best blocking tight end in the draft. And then when you look at it in the sense that they already have Freiermuth, like you have the best tight end duo in the league.
And they have a hybrid tight end fullback. It's actually Cam Hayward's little brother, Connor Hayward.
He went Michigan State,
He
right?
sure
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, he's a good player too. And I just Joey Porter, like I saw him mocked for the Lions a lot. I saw him mocked in that range where those all those DBs went, like Deontay Banks and some of those guys.
Yeah,
And I'm like, Joey Porter, as much as the big knock on him was apparently the interceptions. He had what, one interception? But when you actually look at the ball skills and how he plays man to man and all those sorts of things, he can fit a lot of teams' roles just with the length and the speed. I said to you when they drafted him, he has that natural ability. And now when he gets coached up and you have some vets in that locker room in the Steelers DB room, that could be dangerous and the guy don't look out for in the next couple of years to lock down like number one receivers.
yeah, and like even if he's only ever two corner, that's fine because you know the household he's coming from. Joey Porter did not leave the Steelers on a good note. He left for money, but he never took a playoff, and he will not let his son take the play. They were in the green room at the draft, and his son's crying, and he's saying, "There's nothing like motivation.
Yeah.
Use this to fire you up."
And then he took him
Absolutely.
out back, and they did push-ups and sit-ups and ran laps and
Yeah,
all that crap. Right?
probably. He's probably not even off the mat yet, but I think like you know, obviously Baltimore signing Lamar Jackson and bringing in Odell, and they had a good draft too. I think.
Yeah.
Um, so you'd probably put like Cincinnati, Baltimore, like if you watch ESPN, like those would be the two teams. I'd say watch out for Pittsburgh, man. Obviously the Browns are a decent team. That division's going to be pretty wild,
Good division.
but overall, when you have Allen Robinson, you have George Pickens, Deontay Johnson's still there. They have a receiver that didn't play at all last year, Calvin Austin. He's kind of like a Swiss Army knife kind of player. They got their
Rotation
tight
players.
ends. They got the run game that Kenny Pickett needs to be supported, and they found a way to bolster up the defense. I think they're going to be scary.
I think it's weird when I was talking with my dad today. When you look at how the NFL is kind of laid out right now, you've got some really strong divisions that'll probably have two teams, or the odd time the third team will make it, but it's usually two teams will make the playoffs. And then you got those other divisions that the team will go 7-9 to make the playoffs. The one's your division, and the other one is in the NFC, the Carolina,
Sure.
Tampa.
How did this Lions fan have the right to talk like this?
I'm not
You
saying,
traded your tight end to a division
and
rival.
I'm not even saying the Titans might win that division. They might win that division.
No, man.
But all I'm saying is that when you look at it, it's laid out. You got some divisions with four teams up and down that are like pretty good. Like I would say, when you want to compare your division to an NFC division, you're looking at Washington, Giants, Eagles, and Cowboys. The Cowboys and the Eagles are probably those two teams that are up top. Then you go to the Giants, who actually have like pieces.
And you're probably looking at the two Souths being the shittiest, right?
Yeah, that's
That
exactly.
guy.
I don't know if it's a setup thing, but that's how it's laid out right now. That's how.
I'm gonna take offense to that.
Oh, they pay more attention to their college football, the NFL team.
Yeah,
Now, I want to round out just a couple of the last picks that the Titans had here. This is another one of those where we got to see what the GM of the Titans is going to be like, right? He comes from San Francisco. These guys just recycle running backs from the fourth to the seventh round every 3 years over and over. I don't know if you guys saw the running back they drafted. Do you see the medicals on this guy? He doesn't have
Oh,
an ACL.
Spears
Yeah, doesn't have an ACL in his right knee. Hasn't had an ACL for many years.
can't tear something you don't have.
That was the joke. And then, of course, I've never heard of that before, especially in a running back. And apparently, like from the doctor YouTubers that want to talk about this shit, it's if you have a strong hamstring, quad, and strong calves, you can overcome this ACL problem, right? But a lot of people said he's a one contract player. It fits into Rand's scheme. Like it fits into
Yeah,
the GM's idea. Every 3 years, we're going to recycle you anyway, right? And then we got a tight end. You talked about the tight ends that were out there. We got a tight end from Cincinnati who looks a lot like another tight end from Cincinnati that's one of the best ones in the league right now as far as the way his play style.
yeah.
He's not a wide receiver. I'm really upset that we didn't get a wide receiver until the seventh round and then an undrafted one. But that tight end is like a Gesicki. I feel that he can kind of play that slot position, get outside. Michael, what was that? What was the tight end turned wide receiver from the Saints years ago? Colston, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, similar to that, where his ability is high point. He knows how to run routes across the middle, and he's a big body still. His knock is that he doesn't run block, right?
Right,
And
right.
he's not the strongest guy. But I think I'm kind of excited for that. But I just thought it was really interesting that, of course, in the third or fourth round, we get this running back with no ACL, and it's typically up
Yeah.
Rand's alley, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, it makes sense. I think overall, with the exception of maybe the Bucks, like everyone got a little bit better. But I do think that the Bucks added one of the best undrafted free agents
You
in
tell.
Sean Tucker, running back from Syracuse. Um, I was actually talking to Big Fudge yesterday. I was like, just steal this guy in all your dynasty leagues because you want to steal him, stash him, because he's going to be their week one starter, and he's probably going to lead that team in rushing, but like barring an injury.
Who's their running back right now?
Rashid
And
Shaheed.
Tucker. Yeah, so they moved on from Fournette. They got Cassius Vaughn there still. They got Rashid White,
Yeah, he's
and
probably
then
day one.
Gio Bernard just retired, right? So they don't have a ton going on there. this guy was productive in the ACC. He actually made the Syracuse team a lot better than what they looked, and you know that Syracuse team had a couple good wins, but they got rinsed to shit when he wasn't productive. So
You talk about running backs, the orange there. It's kind of sparked my memory here. What about our boys from London, guys? Right,
yeah,
that's
Yeah.
pretty
great,
cool, right?
really.
It sucks that one guy went to the Eagles. I mean, I just hate cheering for the Eagles all the time,
That's a
and
good
now
scheme
I
fit
have
for
to.
him though.
It fits for him
But
perfectly,
you
right?
know what? Like the fact that those guys went and did their draft party in Ilderton speaks a lot to their. They haven't forgot where they came from. Good for them. ESPN sent a camera crew out there to make sure that they're taken care of. I thought that was really cool. Oh, who did?
Cincinnati, and they had
Yeah, that's
Zach
exactly
Ryder had
right.
a lot of good things to say about him, right? So he
Yeah,
catches the ball, he runs hard, he's going to run through you. And weeks just prior to that, it was a question of like, is Mixon going to be here? And he said, well, he is right now, but that's strictly because all they're doing is waiting for the legal proceedings to carry out. And
yeah, right.
regardless, one way or another, however it splits, you are going to be gone from the team. They got a kid now that can run for many yards, that can
Yeah.
be a 3 down back. He can definitely block. And it's not hard to outpace Joe Mixon when he got 3.8 yards a carry.
He's used to playing in cold weather in
Yeah.
Illinois. It all makes sense. I think that the Mixon thing is gone. So, if you're looking for another running back that could be a starter week one that people aren't talking about, like that's the other guy. That makes a lot of sense. Because P. Ryan's gone too, right? I
Mhm.
mean, at this point, he might have been drafted into the best possible situation that he could have came into.
And coming back, the same with the Eagles. Like in that position, they've just
Yeah.
lost CJ, right? Like there's definitely some depth. He probably isn't going to be their starter, but that's definitely a kid that has proved more than enough.
They roll guys
They
through too,
Yeah,
yeah.
right?
and no, that's exactly the defense. No, it's different defense now because the one guy went over to the defensive coordinator left, right? But there's going to be a lot of similarities for sure. But
Yeah.
both those kids ended up in, I think, prime positions. If we had to, throw a dart at the board, I don't think they could have landed on a better spot, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, exactly. I mean, I would have loved to get the safety onto the western side of PA, but what are we gonna do, right?
I wanted the running back back.
Yeah,
That was my Derrick Henry takeover right there.
yeah. And you know what? Like that would have been the pipe dream. That would have been cool. Quick shout out to our boys over at Clemson. BT Potter is on an undrafted free agent for the Steelers, so he's gonna compete for the job.
Look at you.
It's bullshit anyway, because like, sorry, Chris Boswell has a huge contract. There's no way they're letting him go.
You know what?
But oh look, the Steelers have been known to carry a practice squad kicker. For quite a while there, it was actually his wife is on the highway. Macy Banks. She does like the morning show for the highway.
Okay.
Anyway, for a long time he was on there, and then he went to the XFL. So they've been known to carry those guys. So
Maybe it's a time. Are you looking for one?
I'm saying for his sake, hopefully he can like make some great kicks through camp because he'll have all the kicks through camp. He'll have all the kicks through the preseason. Get your tape out there and go do your thing. I'd love for you to be a Steeler because Aiden talks great things about you, but they owe Chris Boswell a lot of money. They're not going to cut him. I'm sorry.
Hey,
Like,
the Lions
that
need a kicker.
it's a business. Like they're not gonna have a $7 million cap hit for a kicker,
No.
and they're not going to carry two, unfortunately.
Choose someone blue, man. We're,
Well,
we're desperate for one.
well, we're giving shout outs here. Let's give a shout out to our boy Tavius Robinson too. He's always been talking to us and those sorts of things. He got drafted to the Ravens. Not what Shane wanted to hear, but
Hey,
congrats to him. And it seems like lots of like local guys and then guys that we've been talking to getting drafted here. And it's awesome.
Well, what I'm interested there is that we all have an opinion on Harbaugh. Every
yeah,
one of us, good, bad, ugly, and I have been through the ringer up and down with my opinions on that guy. It's going to be interesting to have somebody from the inside that can maybe give you even 2 cents of what he sees throughout the season, right?
that's what we
Cool.
need, and like not for his sake, because I mean he's gonna. But we need him to go through the whole camp, and then him to get picked up by another team, so that he can tell us what it's really like. Because I honestly, I don't think that Harbaugh is a good coach. I think that he's probably like a decent enough guy, and people like to talk to him because he's got that like father figure kind of vibe to him. But I don't know when I see him on the sidelines, he's not doing a whole lot of coaching, and like Lamar Jackson walks right by him, doesn't have a ton of respect for him. Uh, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what goes on there. I don't have as high of hopes as ESPN does for Baltimore. I think you bring in Lamar Jackson on a huge contract. You had to. It would be stupid not to. But you bring in Odell on a huge contract. You didn't have to. That was dumb. And then you bring in Zay Flowers, who I think is one of the best receivers in the entire draft. But you're going to put him in a locker room beside Odell Beckham, who has literally just like Look at the way that the Giants fell apart after just before a playoff game. They all went on some boat party. Look where all those receivers are now.
Well, he knows he's not going to mess with the kicking net, right? That thing will kick his ass again.
Yeah, look, I think that the Odell thing to Baltimore at 5 million makes sense. At 17 million is absurd. They had to check a whole bunch of boxes for Lamar.
Yeah.
Look, if you got to do what you got to do, the Jets are sure doing it for Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, yeah, they brought in Randall Cobb. Who would have
Yeah.
thought he'd be playing another football game? They brought in Alan Lazard. Like, I kind of had a feeling Lazard to be there. He's still not too old.
Watch out, Jordy Nelson's coming. Yeah, Jennings is coming. Like Donald Driver.
Randall Cobb to me is the Udonis Haslam signing for the Jets. This
Yeah.
guy's going to play 15 snaps all season long and hopefully ride the wave if they're good throughout the
He'll
year.
probably have 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He's still good for 3 touchdowns.
30 for 3, yeah. Corey Davis probably get cut out of there like soon, right? Like it doesn't really have to. They're okay for the money,
Yeah.
but that's the most likely candidate to be cut out of there.
Yeah, I don't, like
Another guy victim of like not his fault where he was drafted, right? You
Yeah.
stuck him at 5.
when overall your quarterback is dictating who's going to be in the locker room, I don't think it bodes well for you, minus Tom Brady. Like, Tom Brady's the outlier. If Tom Brady brings 6 championship rings into your locker room, you give him anything he fucking wants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, okay, cool. You're in New York. You need to win a playoff game. Whatever. Baltimore. Like, you've seen Lamar Jackson. He's not bad, but he's not
He's going to throw for 6,000 yards this year, didn't
like
you hear?
like this year walking in, and you were looking at who's going to have the highest completion percentage in that division. He's fourth. Like what? He might be fifth. Like depending on if another quarterback gets hurt. Like he's gonna throw for 54%, and he's gonna have 25 touchdowns passing. He's probably gonna have 10 rushing, but that's a lot of money for that.
Well, and there's the weight is luckily enough for him, as silly as this sound, the weight isn't just on his shoulders. The weight is going to be on the Ravens' shoulders too, right? He gets to
Yeah.
wear this with the organization because they played hardball for quite some time, but they're the ones who signed the dotted line at the same time too. And on top of that, like you said, they've signed the players and drafted the players to get around him. The draft
Right.
that makes sense. We've all agreed with that. That if you can't sign the wide receivers around your young rookie contract quarterback, then the only other thing you can do is draft the good wide receivers around them, right? But the
Right.
OBJ signing is, you're right. It's very strange. Another guy who complains about playing on turf, rightfully so, but is playing on turf. Like,
Yeah.
it's surprising this guy wants to play half of the season on a turf field for sure, guaranteed.
Right. Right. It's odd behavior. If 2 years from now or 3 years from now for Levis or well, I mean Hooker's retired in 3 years. Whoever the Lions
He's
take at
catching that retirement pension.
whoever the Lions take at quarterback next year, if that guy is dictating your franchise 4 years from now and who's playing and who they're signing, how do you feel about that?
No, and that's a great question because honestly, there's nothing more than I hate than when athletes, especially like quarterbacks, think they can go in and be like, "This is who I want on my team," and then this is what they overspend on wide receivers, or they overspend on something, and you look at the rest of the team, and for some reason it just seems to crumble. Whenever people do, like when LeBron went to the Lakers, yeah, they won one championship, but ever since then, they haven't.
Was it a bubble championship? Or
Yeah,
was it
that's
a
what I'm saying.
Fuck
No,
off here, okay?
I was about to
It's a bubble championship.
That's what I was gonna say. They won their championship in quotation, but other than that, that thing's been utterly a disaster. Maybe this year they can turn around, but he's the one saying, "Oh, this is who I want on my team." All those trades that they made this year at the deadline was because of LeBron. So if they don't win the championship, you put it on him and not the GM. But in the end, it will be on the GM.
That's the thing. The coach gets fired, the GM gets fired, LeBron stays. And
Now-
he goes to play wherever his son's going to play in 2 years.
Yeah.
Now, I know we don't talk a whole lot about basketball here, but because you mentioned the trades there and everything, I understand that it is traditional for the team or the player that gets traded away to sometimes still get the championship ring, right, if they get traded. I thought it was very odd for Russell Westbrook. Now, Pat Beverly, it's not his fault, but Westbrook coming on saying that he would really like to have a ring. I don't get where this guy's coming from. That was the problem at every team he has been at.
Yeah.
This team had to trade you away, and when they traded you away, they got better, and they made the playoff run without you, and you think you deserve a ring. This is how hard up you are for a ring right now, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you're the highest paid player in the league, mind you, at the same time, begging for a ring on an opposite team, not even on the team that you're begging the ring from. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very weird. If I got traded away from my team and they won the championship, and they sent me a ring, I would fucking punt it into the Thames River.
Well, it was like when DeMar, right? Like there
Yeah.
was a whole thought when DeMar got traded, is he going to get the ring? And I think he never came out and said yes or no kind of thing, did he?
No, so he was on a podcast actually like a week ago, and they asked him like what he thought about the Raptors winning and stuff. And if he was there, do you think they could have done it? He was obviously like, yeah, if I was there, I honestly think we still would have won the championship. But nothing ever came out about him getting a ring or Valanciunas. I don't think either of those guys got rings for that season.
Yeah. So
Good.
just rather silly. West Brick is the one that's out there begging for a
Yeah,
ring,
yeah,
eh? Yeah.
yeah. What else is going on? I mean, the NFL schedule comes out on Thursday.
This is so funny. This team, this corporation, multi-million-dollar corporation, and they couldn't get their homework done at the last minute. How long have you had since the end of the season? Like the end of when the 17th game was played last, or 18th game was played last, 17th, sorry. Every like person said this is what your team's schedule is going to be next year as far as opponents go, right?
Yep.
How hard is it just to connect the dots? Like I get there's some travel issues in there, and itinerary. You don't want to have one team traveling 4 weeks in a row across the country, kind of thing. But it's ridiculous, guys, isn't it?
This is all for TV
Oh
purposes.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
This
dragging it
the
out.
schedule has been made,
it
Yeah.
and it was made before the draft.
yeah.
And it just hasn't been released. Amazing that it hasn't been leaked, but you know, on Thursday morning, home games will start getting leaked on your like home team's Reddit because the season ticket holders will get the email saying like, "Hey, your game is this day. Hey, your games are this day." So you're kind of gonna know who's playing who where. There isn't as much intrigue for me this year as there was last year because last year was the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, and the Steelers were playing they had a game against the Raiders, and I really didn't know if the NFL would pair them up on Christmas Eve. They did, and it was awesome. And I thought it was like a fantastic, smart move by them. Probably shouldn't have thought anything otherwise. This year, like I don't know, like just the schedule in front of us. I don't care.
Well, one thing I'm excited for, and I don't know, they haven't announced when it's going to happen, but the Titans are going to finally wear their Houston Oilers jerseys again. This is
Okay,
pretty friggin' awesome.
Yeah.
I hope to all have, man, that they do that against Houston. That's my biggest hope. So I'm circling those dates, one, because I think that's when they're going to wear the jersey, but two, it's they
that'd
could
be
rub it in.
funny.
Yeah, yeah. It's a big spite in all the fans in Houston's side there. So
I got one question for you guys with the schedule, and I was thinking about this. How many primetime games will your team get, excluding Thanksgiving? Thanksgiving doesn't count. So for the Lions, Thanksgiving is not a primetime game, but they play at 12. So how
How
many,
many are the Steelers gonna get?
yeah, how many
5.
Steelers are getting? 5 primetime games?
Yeah.
Kalen, how many primetime games are you getting?
we're only going to get one, man. The AFC South's all going through Jacksonville. It's Trevor Lawrence's year, prime time wise.
And what I had for the Lions was 2. I think you play the Bears once on primetime, and I think there's one other game mixed in.
Hmm.
I think the Bears Lions is probably a Thursday earlier in the season, and then wouldn't be surprised. I don't think it would be Green Bay. I don't think it'd be the Vikings if we get like
I
a
think it would
weird
be Green
Lions.
Bay.
You think it could be?
So
It's commonly is, but I don't know.
So what you got to think about is the really, really popular teams with the big fan bases, like not the Lions, like the Green Bay, the
Yeah,
Steelers, the Cowboys. Um, Help me out a little bit.
Tampa was for a bit, but they won't this year.
Tampa, yeah,
Seattle.
they're dick riders. Yeah, like Seattle probably. Um, yeah, those historic teams are always going to get the maximum amount. So
Yeah,
if they could take one of those maximum amount games and pair them up with a team that's like an up and comer, so I would look at who the Dolphins or how many the Dolphins had last year, and then I would connect that number to what the Lions are
yeah.
because they're just another team that's going to disappoint you in the end. But like they have a huge expectation going in.
And then the other thing I was looking at is like what team do we think gets the most prime time? I was thinking Kansas City, just because obviously the Super Bowl and they seem to get a lot of those nighttime games. Like they
Mhm.
put Mahomes under the lights all the time.
Yeah,
So it wouldn't surprise me they do that again. And then the Jets might be a team that gets more than they usually get, I think.
Well, only because they're the New York market, right?
Yeah.
And they can do that with Aaron Rodgers being there. But they also have it's they're not the Giants will probably get quite a few too.
yeah.
The NFC is not very strong. Their New York market that is their team that is strong. So I think they could probably get quite a few as well. New York's going to be kind of littered with some primetime games this year for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Philly's going to have theirs. Kansas City's going to have theirs. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati's been up and coming. Um, Overall, like with Thursday nights being split up pretty evenly, but there is a possibility. I don't know if it's a possibility this year or if it's something they're talking about in the future. flex games on Thursdays.
I think that was this year
This
that
is
they
your
can, yeah, they
yeah,
can switch.
They made that official?
I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure. Yeah,
Wow.
that any team that's like playing on a Sunday can it get moved to the Thursday?
there's limitations to it
Oh
from
yeah.
what I thought it was. Yeah,
But I mean, great for viewership.
Yeah.
shitty for the fan.
Sh-
Oh, they did cancel it. No, you're right. I think they actually might have not done that. I think because after we talked about it, that was one of the big hypes about that. Maybe Liam, can you look that up for us? Whether or not they moved that flex thing on the Thursday, if it's this year or if it's still being talked about. They were going to flex the Thursday night games.
Can Thursday night football be flexed?
Yeah,
Because I think that that would impact some of the teams. Because
Yeah.
I believe that there's a stipulation that every NFL team needs one, or is that old?
they got rid of that.
That's gone.
That was official at the end of last year. They don't have to do that
Okay.
anymore. They're
We
not
didn't
going to
have
force feed the Titans and Jaguars down people's throats anymore.
we didn't have one last year other than the late game on the last week of the season that wasn't supposed to be a night game.
They got
That was
flexed
your
into it.
only. You didn't have a Thursday night game. Oh,
No.
your Thursday night game
We only had the
was
Thanksgiving
Thanksgiving.
Which isn't considered
at
prime time. Yeah.
noon. At noon. So like that's what they would say.
Okay, so as of March 28th, the NFL owners have tabled the vote on flexing them.
So they
Okay.
are not doing it then. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that'll be interesting to see how that actually plays out. But I think that that will overall impact. But when you're walking into day one scheduling March 11th or May 11th, I would I would envision that the Lions are going to have 3 or 4. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
I think that
Again, they're an offensive team. I
Yeah.
think that's what gets you those primetime games, and that's why teams like Philly and teams like the Lions that can put up points are going to get those games.
And in that division, outside of Minnesota, I mean, they would be the team that like they're the darling, right?
Well, I don't know. It seems like media really. Dan Orlovsky is one of them today is going off, but it seems like the drum is starting to bang for Chicago about the draft maneuvering that Pace was able to do, the players they were able to pick up. They got some supporting cast for the kid now, but that there are some pundits that are starting to sway that way. It just can't ever be the Lions.
Yeah.
I really said like I'm a little more worried about Chicago than I am the Vikings. Like you know what you're gonna get with the Vikings. They've actually lost pieces on defense. You know what you're getting when you play them offensively. The offense hasn't changed.
Patty P.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They lost him. They lost Eric Kendricks. Like their defense is gonna look a lot different. And then on offense, like same guys, Kirk Cousins, Jefferson, Cook. It's all the same.
Right.
They lost Thielen actually, so
Oh, Cook may not even make it through. Who knows? He could make it
Yeah.
trade, right?
Well, that's the thing.
and then but if you look at Chicago, like as much as like I'm not a big field guy, like he has that ability to make big plays that like can change games. That's why I picked him that early, and that's why they have the belief that they do in him. And then you look at it just depends how their young guys ball. I think they're in a similar situation that the Lions were in a few years back, like that season that we went, not the season before this, even though we didn't win a lot of games, you kind of could see stuff starting to
Be
brew
more
with no
specific.
talent. Like the year they originally had Jared Goff, their top receiver was either Khalif Raymond and then Amon-Ra that was picked, but he was a fifth round, so they didn't know he was
Right,
going to
right.
be anything. And then
Hindsight's 2020, isn't it?
yeah, but they string together like great games at the end of the season that year, and then this year they came in, they did okay at the start, not really that great, and then won some at the end. Whereas the Bears had what 3 or 4 wins last year. They could be a team that gets that 6, 7, 7 wins. Maybe doesn't make the playoffs, but is now looking at that second team in the NFC North.
And he looks to me, maybe it's just because he was on my team and I remember this, but like Justin Fields is at that Vince Young stage right
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
right? Like he just plays right now. The way they let him play was the way that Vince played at Texas, or that one year that the Tennessee let him play and he won the Rookie of the Year. Just let the play happen. Like if the run, if he's a one read quarterback and he wants to run, let him do it because it's successful. He knows how to make people miss, right? He doesn't get hit hard when he's doing it,
And he's big.
and he's a big guy, yeah. So they're a team that can just do it just enough. I feel like just to get the W this year, but I haven't bought in yet. I haven't bought it.
So people that are praising their draft don't realize that they traded Chase Claypool essentially for Joey Porter Jr. Like they gave the Steelers their second round
Finished with I
pick.
think 6 catches after the
Oh, he was awesome.
Yeah,
He was the,
they didn't win a game since after he got traded there.
Yeah,
he was the guy that I was looking at each week, and I'm like, this guy's gonna score a touchdown, and you put a little bit of money on him. He's like plus like whatever it is, and he just never did it last year.
No,
He just never did it.
but like I think that Claypool was really good with Ben Roethlisberger, but Ben Roethlisberger made a lot of guys really good.
Yeah.
You know what? Like some guys are just one contract receivers. That's him. No one's going to pay him big money next year. He's going to probably get like a 1 year, $2.5 million deal somewhere like New England, and then he'll be out of the league in 2 years.
Just like McKilliary.
Right. It's unfortunate, but it's just the fact. It's the way
Or
things, it's just the way they go.
4 Canadian receivers, I guess.
Well, like overall, if you don't continue to grow and you feel like you already made it, then that's just what it is.
Yeah.
His strength is also his biggest hindrance right now because he needs to be a red zone receiver. Well, guess what? You play for the Bears. If you're in the red zone, Justin Fields running it in.
He's running it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, a couple other things going on in sports right now outside of football. Obviously, the hockey playoffs are going on. Big shout out to our London Knights who made the final. They'll get to see who they're going to play, whether it be Peterborough or North Bay tonight. But lots of Leafs fans sitting on edge right now.
They're cannibalizing themselves in any socials, right? So where are you at in this stage? Are you in the core four got to go, or the core four got to stay and they got to get rid of Dubas?
Okay, this is what I'm looking at. Dubas is staying. Dubas is staying. If you actually look at how he built the team, it's the players and this coach is Sheldon Keefe is the one of the worst hockey coaches I think in the league. It just isn't showing during the regular season. Because when you watch regular season hockey, these guys can score, do whatever. There's not that urgency that players have in the playoffs. Like Florida's not the most talented team. Like look it up and down. They got veterans. Hey, no.
Come on. This team's been clicking for 6 weeks, pal.
Like,
6 weeks.
They're not. But if you look at their roster, they're not the most talented team. But they definitely play with the most heart. They're more physical, and they got a good veteran presence. People forget it.
Right now, in the Eastern Conference playoffs, who has more talent than Florida?
The Leafs. If you actually look at their roster up and down, the Leafs have more talent.
Okay,
That's what we're talking about.
If there was no injuries, Carolina would have more than that. But they're banged up. They got 3 guys on the IR right now.
That's the problem. Like Carolina's lost so many guys, and then
They play Team
Carolina's just. I mean, New Jersey's so young that in a few years, if we're looking at me oh, this team's probably the most talented. But when you look at answering your question about the core four and all those sorts of things, I think you need to get rid of Tavares. You can't really get rid of him. He's just so old.
You guys wouldn't have even made it to the first round with
Nylander's actually the craziest thing. Sick. People that
No, I agree with him in the sense that he is the one part of the guy that's dragging the contract that he's got. He's complete. He's an albatross contract, unfortunately. But it is funny that if it wasn't for that guy that everybody is ragging on right now, he would be. He would win the first round. So potentially,
Tavares,
somebody else.
Marner can't play. Mitch Marner's a great skilled hockey player, but in
3
playoff
goals in 34 playoff games.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
exactly. And he's getting he's supposed to be getting paid. The guy hasn't done anything, and
he's little.
That's part of what it is.
Well, and another thing is that what is he up for right now is the Selke, right? It's him and Bergeron and Nico Hischier up for the Selke Award, which is the best 200-foot player, defensive player. And what is he known for specifically is the PK and scoring on the PK. When you get to the playoffs, you're playing against teams that don't put themselves on the PK, right? And if they do, they typically know how to get themselves out of trouble, right? So they're not playing against teams like Arizona where you can go and score those few power play goals against and stack up some points, right?
So you got to, coaches got to you look at he's juggling lineups in May. You got to know who your guys are and who you want to play them with. And if it's not working, then switch it. But he switches it almost every period. It's what are you doing? And then I would say overall, when you want to talk about the guy that should be staying is William Nylander. If you actually watch the hockey games, people bash the guy. He's the one getting all the chances. He set up the goal last night that took the lead for them. But no, Austin Matthews and Marner are the guys that they got to build around. No, Marner's got to go. Honestly, I wouldn't be up if Matthews wants to go and we don't got to pay him the money. Then walk.
So according to this Leaf fan, the core four has to get broken up in some way.
It has to get broken up in
They got to
some way.
can the head coach, but they got to keep the GM and they got to keep somebody.
I don't think the core four gets
somebody
broken up.
The full redesign.
Yeah,
it's basically like I say, they're cannibalizing themselves. These nice, they don't know what they want, right?
As far as
7, though,
this is as far as you've made it in over 20 years. Now, at that point, there's no such thing as a moral victory, but that seems like a step. If it wasn't for I'm going to call the Reinhardt goal yesterday a little bit fluky because the goalie was in no man's land. If it wasn't for that goal, the Leafs drag that period out. They probably score, and everybody's replanning the parade. But after that game against the Lightning, everybody walked off the fucking Stanley Cup parade, and everybody thought that it was such a big deal. We won. You didn't win shit.
But we want Florida chance, I
Hey,
think, is what did it
that
all,
no,
right?
you can never do that.
Not even harder than
I said
all the chat
it's
scores.
playoff hockey. Like you don't any team you play is dangerous
Mm-hmm.
if they can get hot. And I don't think the series is over. I think it's Leafs in 7. To be completely
You're
honest,
an
I
idiot.
put money on Leafs
No.
on 7. Couldn't happen. Everyone, quote me on this right now on the camera. Leafs in
All right,
7.
if they don't, what do we
I
get?
already made a deal last time with David Montgomery. He's not getting the yard, so I might as well just.
You know what? If
Uh,
the Leafs win in 7, we'll let you off the David Montgomery thing. If not, you have to double down on it.
There we go. And then
oh,
on my side with the Devils and how they've been playing and stuff, we're playing with house money. Like you, all the pressure is on you guys. If we lose this series, if we lost the Rangers series, we weren't expected to be here at the start of the season. There was just
Yeah.
another rebuild year. We're playing with house money, so I'm living the dream right now. I'm re-energized after last night. I'll tell you that much because 48 hours ago, yet or 72 hours ago, I was telling everybody that was a fun season. It's over.
Yeah, you pot 8 goals and
yeah.
you feel a little bit
I
better.
feel a hell of a
It
lot
was a
better.
12-goal game yesterday, and you gave up 3 shorthanded goals and still won.
And still won.
That's
Only
all-
time that's ever happened in NHL history, by the
All
way.
the comparisons for Florida right now are the 2012 Kings.
They are. They just do. They click. They come at you. And Mikey O'Keefe said that the funniest line to me the other day about Seattle, and it's the same thing about Florida. This team has 4 second lines, and they just keep coming at you in waves over and over again, and they
Yeah.
beat the shit out of you until you're
Oh,
just
yeah.
tired by the third period, and then they really take it on to you, right?
Well, we've seen that. The Leafs have been up game 2 and game 3. They should win those games. Florida just seems in that late third period there just to outpace completely.
Well, from beginning of puck drop to the third period, one thing that they have not done, and many my buddies have pointed this out, is they don't win any puck battles. They cannot win a puck battle against the Florida, and they should be on paper outside of Tavares, who probably can run faster than he can skate at this point of his career. But outside of him, that should be the fastest team on ice. There
Yeah.
should be no reason that Toronto's getting outpaced to the puck and winning those stick battles by any means.
There's
Playoffs are a mindset. Their mindset was let's get past Tampa. They got past Tampa, and Boston wasn't there, and they were not ready for the hurricane that's running through Florida.
Yeah.
It's just not. They're not ready for it.
You're right, and
They would lose
I
to the
mean,
Knights. They're not ready for anybody.
In tomorrow's game, we won maybe tonight. Yeah, okay, never in a life of lost tonight.
They thought we got over Tampa. Boston got upset. We're going to the Cup. But at the end of the day, it's going to be Florida and Edmonton. Probably the 2 most actually skilled teams and that are somewhat built for the playoffs. And don't be shocked if Florida wins the Cup.
I mean, if
Are you going to be throwing rats around here if Florida wins the Cup? Is that what you're telling me right now? Because you're hyping them up pretty heavy right now.
Yeah,
if
I
Bobrovsky
hate
keeps
them,
playing,
but I watch the games and I'm trying to be objective because the Penguins are in the playoffs.
and he's a hot goaltender too. So if he stays hot, then yeah, they could win the cup.
Your opinion of the goalie doesn't mean anything, Josh. I'm glad that you find him hot.
I'm not.
It's just that, you know what? There's people like Andre Palat was paid $5.5 million more than that. They come to New Jersey, they made fun of him, and what did he do? And he won the series by himself in New York, right?
Yeah.
And then he's still playing pretty well here in the second round right now, and that's why they're paying him. Bobby, maybe he just doesn't have that regular season drive anymore. He gets to the playoffs, and he knows how to play, right? He wants to get a little bit active, right?
At the end of the day, like we both know that the next time we're sitting here, actually by tomorrow, right? It's like the Leafs are done.
When I see you Friday
or Wednesday,
maybe they'll
they
play
play Wednesday. Sorry.
Are you giving me hope though? Am I getting any hope on this series?
So I do think that the Devils have an opportunity to get back into it because they've shown a little bit of life and they've actually shown the ability to finish.
There's a Luke joining the squad, right?
So overall, I think the better series would be Carolina and Florida, but we'll see how it shakes out. I mean, I think that's the more logical finish, but
Think of the teams the Jersey would have to run through. The Rangers in that grinding style.
Yeah.
The Carolina Panthers Hurricanes are just so fucking fast, and then you got to play against Florida, who just again grinds the hell out of you, right?
Yeah. I mean,
play against McDavid and you're done.
They're going to need Martin Brodeur to come out for some kind of a challenge there, but
Schmidt will be back.
Yeah, I don't know. Overall, the hockey playoffs have been okay. I haven't paid too much attention to the West. Obviously, Leon Draisaitl has been animal. I watch all those games because Big Fudge is paying deep attention to them.
Yep.
Um,
Go to Seattle. That's gonna be a fun matchup when it happens, man. Because that's the way it's going.
we'll finish off with my bad beat of the week. So I had Jason Tatum to go 25 points, to have 3 threes, and for the Celtics to win money line.
Oh, and the OT, didn't it? Fairly out
Jason Tatum had 24 points,
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 threes, and they lost by 1 in overtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a
That's-
one hitter.
But I did get the best value on my bets. And all those best values can be found at the Betstamp app. That's available on the Apple iTunes website, Google. Is that what they call it?
Google Play.
Yeah, App
Apple
Store,
Store.
Google Play.
You can just go to www.betstamp.app to find it. Make sure you use the referral code Goin for 2 and get yourself all locked up. You can make yourself up to an extra $1,000 a year just by shopping the lines. But that is where we will sign off, and we will say cheers. We'll see you guys in 2